Quiet lives out there where trees grow thick and no one goes. Not empty air, but something watching, heavy enough to stop birdsong mid-call. Raised my years near that hush, close enough to taste copper when wind shifted wrong. At 17, doing nothing feels like drowning slow. We poured warm beer down throats just to feel anything, wandered through wet leaves under sky choked by pine. His place clung to a ridge above land forgotten long before maps got names right. Down below, water cut paths through stone and muck left over from ages back. Light hours made it ours, a hiding spot shaped by current and shadow. A rope dangled from a gnarled willow, swaying like something half alive. Lying in the grass felt good, heat soaking through shirts, never thinking what lay buried beneath. Locals kept quiet, their eyes shifting when someone mentioned that patch of land. They named it the Witch's Place, never loud, always low. Tales surfaced after dark, blood in the dirt, chants under trees, people feeding more than flames during bonfires. Not evil exactly, more like appetite dressed in shadow. My boyfriend heard these things as a kid, same as others. Yet John, he wasn't scared. Curiosity pulled him deeper instead. It began with those fragile gaps, places where the boundary between our world and theirs grew paper thin. John spoke of the coming full moon, his gaze lit by something restless, almost unsteady. Then he claimed it. That moment would crack everything open. That was when they'd show themselves. Sarah stood beside me, silent. Her doubt mirrored mine, deep in the bones. Yet being 17 meant dread of shame outweighed any terror of vanishing. So we nodded, a choice made heavier by silence after. Heat clung thick that night, far too heavy for autumn. A warm night, though the warmth sat close, almost smothering, like a blanket left too long in a sunlit room. Sweaters hung unused in our bags, pointless now. Light poured down from above, sharp and clear, making tree branches seem carved from old bone. The trail to the water normally passed quickly, just under half an hour on flat feet. But then, each minute dragged. The dirt road ahead twisting longer than before, as if pulled by invisible strings. Moving forward meant fighting something unseen, resistance at hip level with every stride. Flashlights bobbed in front of them, shaky fingers of light darting between trunks. Yet moonglow alone showed how different everything had become. What stood beside the path were no longer familiar shapes. Those weren't oaks, those weren't maples. They rose up like arms caught mid-cry. Out near the stream, once we made it to the open space, everything changed. Not simply colder, more like broken somehow. That stream they called beautiful? Now a thick line of dark fluid slicing across dirt. My gut twisted sharp and hard. Some ancient thing inside yelled without words, "Leave now." That night, trees swallowed the light whole. My boyfriend broke the silence like it owed him something. "Sit a while," he suggested, voice too steady. He dropped onto a dead tree with John beside him. Not me. I stood, sharp, skin buzzing under invisible needles. A sound cut through, thin, distant. "Did you catch that?" I breathed into the dark. "Catch what?" John snapped his torch shut to admire starlight instead. Something moved. Not the gentle shake of trees when air passes by. This felt thick, with intent, like weight pulling through bushes, moving around us. Almost like someone crawling fast on hands and feet. "Probably nothing but wind," my boyfriend offered. "No wind tonight," I replied. Everything stood still, silent. Then it again, nearer, sharp, from the brush past the river's edge, surrounding us completely. A hush settled as the space tightened around us. My expression must have shown it, how close I was to snapping apart. In response, John flicked the thick mag light on again. Light cut through the open area, moving slow, empty. It slid over the old rope swing hanging there. Still nothing. "Look," he offered, words almost steady. "No one's out here." After that, light swung toward the far side of the water. Just a flash, no longer than breath held. Right then, I felt myself vanish. Not some spirit, not some cloaked figure whispered about at night. A shape like a person, yet wrong in every angle. Bare, skin pale like something pulled from mud after weeks, loose and creased, hanging off frame like wet cloth on a hanger. Out of the corner of my eye, something shifted. No fabric covered it, just clumps of stiff fur, dull and tangled like old roots stuck to stone. Sitting low in the dirt, its arms stretched down, thin bones wrapped in skin, fingers buried deep in wet ground. Then came the stare. The face had no mouth moving, yet I heard it anyway. A noise inside my skull, sharp as broken glass scraping bone. Those eyes, empty holes filled with cold light, faint green, sickly bright. A voice without sound punched through thought itself, words like whispers chewed up by stones. Pressure built behind my ribs, slow and heavy, as if time forgot how to move. Stop. My body locked. 5 full seconds passed without sound. Air vanished from my lungs. A voice refused to rise. There stood a presence, familiar with our return, settled in what it now called home. Out came the scream. "Run!" ripping through me as if my voice were breaking apart. Running came first. Not their voices, not loyalty, nothing held me back. Pride meant little, John's fixations even less. Off I went, fast, through trees. What should have taken 20 minutes passed in half that time, maybe less. Branches slicing skin, breath sharp with blood on the tongue. Something followed. Not the kids. This was different. Slap of damp skin on wet ground, too close. That stare at my neck wouldn't quit, slick and freezing, stayed glued all the way to the car. Inside his car we piled fast, metal clashing, latches snapping shut like echoes out of sync. The engine roared when he pushed down hard, wheels tearing at loose stone, kicking up dirt so thick it swallowed the pale light above. Once pavement came under us, something inside gave way without warning. That weight, still there, held close until the river passed beneath our tires, marking the edge of those trees behind. After that crossing, silence took its place. Whatever followed simply vanished. Talk about it? We didn't. Not once more than a whisper anyway. John quit chasing ghosts soon after. Sarah avoids leafy paths once dark falls. Those pages survive, tucked away where I left them. Jotted down in a rush, fingers unsteady, marks blurred from damp palms. Some claim it's made up, too neatly terrifying to be real. In their eyes, we're just restless teenagers inventing drama out of thin air. Yet I remember exactly what appeared in the light. Not wind, something else, something broken, abandoned out there under the trees. Nights when the moon hangs bright and the warmth thickens the dark, I come awake suddenly. My gaze drifts to the shadowed edge of the ceiling, just for an instant, and there, 2 burning stares lock into mine. Maybe I finally saw it clear. Not once did it shout, "Leave," to guard its space. Instead, a quiet push, so it might savor the chase. The air changed after that. Before I share this story, there's a thing you should know. Not into alcohol, never touch drugs. Got a regular job, pay bills each month, plus talk to a counselor twice a month. Same one since 2019. Saying all this so you realize I searched hard for logic. Spent months turning it over in my head. That counselor eased the panic some, but nothing erased how those eyes looked right at me. 19 summers tall, I stood in the hush of backcountry lanes where Danny's roots curled deep. That break between first and second year brought us 3. Petra tagged along, plus Marcus trailing close to his folks' land. Europe held his mother and father hostage while we claimed their creaking home like squatters with snacks. Woodland smothered one border, pastures breathed on another, some 40 scattered acres playing host. A creek itched eastward, skirting fence lines until trees swallowed it whole. Forest thick enough to hide secrets, maybe ghosts. No name marked those tangled woods, no deed changed hands, just wild growth doing what wild things do best. That first week felt exactly like summer should. Grilling meals under open sky, nights stretching longer than they needed to, swimming where sunlight melted into the water until it shimmered like honey. Daylight made the creek look unreal, clear, quiet, almost too perfect. Stones worn flat by time lined the bed beneath us. Dragonflies darted without sound just above the ripples. An old rope dangled from an oak limb bent low over the deep spot, left behind who knows when. One after another, we grabbed hold, swung out, let go, plunging into what waited underneath. On the third day, Danny brought up the forest. Casually, he spoke, like someone sharing a fact so old it barely feels worth stating. That patch of trees? Locals kept their distance, especially when night fell. His voice stayed flat as he explained. His father once warned him just as his grandfather had warned before. Something occupied those woods, always had. Not beast, not human. Over time, people settled into an understanding. Stay out after sunset. Let what lives there remain undisturbed. Laughter came from Petra. It wasn't meant to mock, more like disbelief, as if the tale were one of those myths villages weave when night and fear get too close. Marcus called it a horror film opening line. Silence stayed on my lips. My eyes stuck to Danny's expression during their amusement, where his mouth almost lifted but never fully did. That topic stayed buried. Still, the woods kept our distance without a word needed. Another half-week passed. The plan came from Marcus, really, always needing to show something, mainly to himself. Raised in quiet neighborhoods, where trees were trimmed and sidewalks met curbs just so. Wild places unsettled him, stirred a small shame he masked with scoffing remarks. On the 9th evening, once Danny had turned in early, head throbbing, Marcus suggested stepping down to the stream. Not far, only as far as the tree line. A quick look, nothing more. Petra stayed back, worn out from the day. Just me and you ended up going. Truth is, my head felt clear right then. Fear never showed up. Danny's tale caught my attention, maybe rooted in scraps of forgotten town lore, most likely stretched out over time until it sounded like legend. Curiosity stayed with me though. Warm air hung around us, the moon close to round, and honestly, all I expected near those woods was just more trees waiting. East along the creek we went. A quarter hour passed while walking without hurry. Brightness from the moon made flashlight beams almost pointless, though Marcus had packed them just in case. Water murmured nearby, constant, calming. Fields stretched left and right under pale light, colored like old steel. Beauty settled into the scene, quiet but clear. That thought came clear back then. Beauty, real beauty, showed up in my mind like a quiet note. Round that bend, the water bent left. Suddenly trees crowded ahead, light shifted. A different world began. It didn't happen loud. Silence stayed unbroken, nothing snapped nearby. Instead, something shifted beneath the surface, sharp but wordless. Calm gave way without warning, like a breath held too long. No trigger marked the turn, just stillness, then tension, with no sign between. Something felt off, though I could not name it right away. The air seemed different, somehow. Silence sat heavier than usual. A hum lingered beneath everything. Something words miss easily. Tightness rose in my gut. My back stiffened without warning. Move forward? Not one part of me agreed. I stopped walking. There Marcus stood, turning once he saw me lag behind. A few paces up ahead, he called out without teasing. Just steady words cutting through the quiet. Light spilled from his hand, beams slicing gaps between trees where water slipped under roots. The edge of the woods held him there, feet planted where land met shadow. Not waiting exactly, but not pausing either. He waited by the door while I stayed back. The air felt heavy. Inside seemed too much just then. That was his words. No need to enter. Just a glance around, that is all. There I stood, staring. Night had settled deep, the kind of black that only happens beneath tangled branches when the moon barely cuts through. Just slivers here and there, pale as cracked glass. Not just oaks crowded close, but others too strange to name, their roots clawing up from soil like petrified tides. Below, green things pressed together without space. Water slipped off into shadow, dragged under by the gloom where earth and trunk met. Flickering light swept across the ground as Marcus shifted the beam sideways. Then came the sound. It hit me right then, trying to get this right, since precision means something here, given how often my mind has circled back to that noise over nearly a decade. Not quite steps on ground. Closer to what you'd hear if something enormous shifted its load. Gradual, intentional, like a caged beast at dusk rolling its bulk after hours without motion. Originated within the tree line, not deep, perhaps 2 city buses' length from our spot. Afterward, nothing moved. Then came quiet so thick it felt woven. Marcus froze. His name slipped out, quiet. A soft breath shaped the sound without meaning to. He didn't move. Out of nowhere, I said it once more, this time with more volume. He shifted toward me then, slowly. Moonlight hit his face, off somehow. Like someone finally seeing a horror they'd locked away on purpose. Wide eyes, not blinking. Softly, he spoke. "Time to leave." Then added, "Stay low." "Okay," I answered. Back we moved beside the water. Not fast. Some quiet instinct told us speed would draw attention, like a signal meant to be seen. Step after step, firm and even, gaze fixed ahead, never turning toward what lay behind. 200 meters in, then a glance behind. That is when I turned my head. It hit me later. Why would I even turn? The thought came again, like before, heavy on repeat. A pull too strong to fight, a hunger for what waited unseen. My neck moved almost slow, eyes tracing the shiny bend of water slipping into shadowed woods. A shape appeared where the trees stopped. It stood still, just beyond the last line of woods. right where the trees began and the creek slipped under their shadows, the place we'd stood only moments earlier. Moonlight touched the water near its feet, glinting softly around long limbs submerged up to the knees, taller than anyone ought to be, stretched like something pulled too far, narrow in a way that made bone seem misplaced beneath skin. Its arms hung low, fingers maybe brushing the current, still as stone despite the flow. Joints angled oddly, elbows and shoulders set at twists that didn't match how bodies are built. Water did not ripple. Not even a breath disturbed the surface. There, between land and stream, it waited without waiting, present but not alive in any way I recognized. It stood there, eyes fixed as we walked away. It stared at us, I'm certain of that. Even far away, even through darkness, those eyes stood out. Moonlight touched them differently than it does people's eyes. No mere shine, no sparkle, just a pale glow glowing from within. It wasn't looking at Marcus. My skin tightened under its gaze. That kind of focus pressed against my ribs like weight. It wasn't about hatred. This is what keeps surfacing each time I talk with my therapist, what haunts me during long stretches of wakefulness before dawn. I had braced myself for anger, the kind everyone talks about, sharp, loud, threatening. Yet from their gaze, reaching out through space, came a presence heavier than hostility ever could be. It was patience. It waited in those trees longer than any elder's tale reaches back. Tonight it chose stillness, letting us go without sound. Its choice alone shaped the moment, not ours. The weight of that lingers. We walked out only because it allowed it. Grabbing Marcus's arm, I moved quicker, eyes fixed ahead. Not a word passed between us till we stood beneath glowing lamps inside. At the kitchen table, Marcus stayed silent, just sitting. After minutes stretched thin, he mumbled an apology for bringing up the idea. The question slipped out. Had he seen it as well? His answer came soft. Yes. What came out of his mouth surprised me. Tall, way too tall, he told me, just standing there in the water, not blinking. Eyes working without any need for light. Next day we spoke to Danny. Not a flicker crossed his face, no smugness like some ware when their guest wins out. Just a slow nod came then. I know. Said his dad had glimpsed it once, long off, back in high school years. The rule, he added, never really pointed at your own pain. It started with respect, he mentioned. Noticing limits comes next, seeing yourself as the lesser part in the setup. That awareness keeps things steady. The balance stays because someone remembers their place. 2 days sooner, I walked out. A family matter, I said to Danny. No questions came back. By the doorway, his voice dropped low. Most folks catch it just one time. That likely happens, he added, since most take the lesson. That drive took half a day to reach my folks' place. Inside, the old room waited just as it always had. The walls didn't move, yet I watched them like they might. Time slowed once I settled on the bed. Stillness filled the space where words used to be. Hours passed without sound except the floor creaking now and then. Still haven't gone back into the forest after dark. Never again, not once, not even a little patch of trees far from home. Some pals figure it's fear taking over. Maybe they're right, at least a bit. The counselor mentions I went through real terror, and dodging those places now makes sense, but isn't something meant to last forever. Head moves up and down as her words land. She's correct, I say. Going forward means walking through it together. Truth is, when I'm by myself, thinking on it, still near that creek, turned around toward whatever stood in the silver water. I can't say staying away was a mistake. Maybe Danny's dad saw it clear. Some spots on Earth follow their own laws. In those places, getting back isn't about bravery, smarts, or light beams. It comes down to how long something ancient, watching from shadowed depths, chooses to wait. So choosing now, under tonight's sky, that keeping you wasn't worth the wait. It settled quietly inside. These days, I write in a notebook every so often. Started back when the weather turned hot. It isn't about being read by someone else. Putting words on paper just lets me see each thought clearly. Not too near to hurt, not too far to vanish. That space matters. That night's note is brief. Just this. Stay clear of edges when you're lost in something strange. Should you step there anyway and find your way back, name it right. Not fortune. Luck isn't what saved you. Stories need reasons. That feels right to folks. Something like a gas leak, or too many nights without rest. Maybe sorrow playing tricks. I gave out answers like these for years when someone came asking. Most took one and walked away, relieved. Simpler for them. And at first, simpler for me. Now I just speak it clear. 15 years gone, perched here beneath harsh ceiling lights. Lamps cast shadows and edges. Can't handle that anymore. And what sits inside me won't be shaped gently. Miller Road stays fixed. It occurred. No smoothing over what refuses to smooth. Done making escape routes sound kind. Late one autumn, not long after I reached 22, my grandmother passed away. Inside that quiet farmhouse, settled at the edge of a dusty country lane in unnamed Pennsylvania, she'd stayed for more than half a century. She lived by herself, surrounded by walls full of memories most people would never see. Summers there filled much of my childhood. Later, just a few grown-up visits slipped into place. What I felt for her held no tangles, nothing pulled tight by expectation or demand. Her skin carried the scent of dried flowers mixed with something soft, like books left too long on shelves. A chipped ceramic dish always sat out near the stove, filled with bright little mints and butterscotch rounds. Not once did she press me to talk goals, careers, or what came next after school ended. That space she made stood apart, untouched by anything rushing through the rest of my days. After her passing, the house became mine. Far away, my parents felt a weight lift. Keeping track of a countryside place wasn't what they wanted. Everyone assumed I'd put it on the market. Come spring, the attorney mentioned, have someone check the value. By early summer, get it posted. One final winter, I stayed there before letting go. It seemed right, like a gesture toward her, a slow moving through boxes, an allowance for sorrow. Truth lived inside those reasons. Yet, underneath, something quieter held me. Being 22 brought its own kind of wandering, sharp and unguided. Miller Road's old house gave shelter to that drift, an anchor made of silence, where showing up was enough. November began my stay here. The start date stuck in memory. First day of the month, cold morning, boxes at the door. Just like she'd walked out yesterday, the place sat waiting. Glasses resting where she set them, beside the armchair. That library book, still unreturned after 3 weeks past its due date, sat quiet on the kitchen edge. Jotted notes near the phone, a list in her hand. Milk, bread, the better coffee, batteries too. Little pieces of routine stopped short, frozen. Each one hit me sideways. How regular things can pull at your chest when memory sneaks up during ordinary moments. That first fortnight passed exactly like I promised it would. Going through her shirts, gathering novels into cardboard crates, scribbling notes about chairs and tables meant for the yard sale. Silence hung thick inside, temperature low. The furnace groaned when it tried to heat anything. So I stayed wrapped in quilts by the couch, turning pages from her shelves while gusts rattled the eaves outside. A mile off lived the closest neighbor. From every window, no structures came into view. Night brought a black so thick it felt heavy, not like anything those from cities know, since they've never stood under such complete absence of light, where the glow inside walls seems thin, unlike places brightened by distant lamps and neighboring homes. This didn't unsettle me. I'd spent childhood days here, familiar with how the dark presses close. Maybe I believed that, or perhaps not. What caught my eye right away stood below, the entrance to the lower level. That door down the hall never opened. From way back, I just knew it stayed shut. No one said why. It always did. When I was small, around 8, I asked my grandma what was inside. She told me it was only stuff stored below, messy and dim, best left alone so I wouldn't get hurt. That made sense then, enough to forget about it. Years later, standing there at 22 while going through her home, I turned the knob out of habit. Locked again. Didn't surprise me. Figured the key would turn up nearby. Walked away without another look. That key turned up 3 weeks after I arrived. Back of a kitchen drawer hid it. On a tiny ring it sat, alone. Not a single other key joined it. Weight of it rested in my palm. She must have pulled it free from the rest. A separate circle just for this one. Not hung by the back door with the others, stashed instead inside cold wood. Silence around it felt intentional. One piece set apart. Meant something. Maybe. The key turned easily. Inside, the room waited without sound. Here's how it happened. Not a step downward, just me holding the doorway. My hand moved past the frame, searching for something to turn on. Light appeared below after a click. The glow showed cracked concrete underfoot. Walls made of rough stone rose beside narrow stairs. Above, loose wood planks formed the ceiling. Boxes lined up against one side, still and waiting. A drip echoes near the wall where a water heater sits. Not strange at all. Cold air hangs low, wet stone, maybe mold, a scent that knows basements well. That odor follows me wherever stairways descend. For a second, I just stared at the floor. After that, the door clicked shut, secured by the lock once more. The key went where it belonged, inside the drawer. Maybe there's a reason. Not sure. A move made before thinking, almost, but not quite, automatic. As if some hidden layer inside whispered, "Shut it." 15 years gone now, spent weighing one question. Should I have obeyed that quiet push and left the basement sealed? Or was everything already set, door open or not? Maybe it was bound to come. Perhaps the walls were ready. It began after dark. Noise crept through the house when everyone was asleep. A low hum at first, then something sharper followed. Just quiet noises. Nothing loud like a bang or shriek that makes you dash toward an exit. Soft ones instead, and strangely more unsettling because of it. From under the floor came a steady tap, tap. Uneven, so doubt crept in about whether it was real, yet regular enough to keep me listening. 3 hits. Then silence. 2 taps after. Another stretch without sound. 4 beats breaking the stillness. Downstairs creaked, but upstairs I stayed flat on her mattress, eyes shut tight. Pipes made noise. Old ones do that sort of thing when heat pushes through rusted veins. Not ghosts, just water forced along crooked metal paths. My mind grabbed that idea like a blanket, held it close until breathing slowed. Sleep came after doubt wore itself out. Yet things started catching my eye. Wrong timing marked the pipe noises. As hot water flowed, metal stretched, then shrank, which made knocking happen. Heat turning on triggered taps inside walls. So did heat cutting out, usually tied to thermostat signals. Not these. Their pattern followed no signal from the wall unit. Out of nowhere they'd show up. 2 a.m., maybe 4, once during the day when the air sat still and warm. Never a pattern I could pin down. Always the same odd rhythm though. 3 knocks, then silence. 2 after, with more quiet stretched behind it. Then 4. Just like that. Still got the notebook. Began putting them on paper one by one. 14 nights filled with lines of numbers, not scattered. Saw that clear after hours staring. Yet never cracked their sense. Eventually realized I didn't care to find out. The pages stay untouched since. That night, number 16, the noises just ended. Silence came without warning. It hit me right away, the missing noise, showing just how used I'd become to its constant hum. How deeply my sleep leaned on that steady backdrop. Woke me fully at 3, the quiet did, more sharply than any sound ever managed. Lying there, eyes open, sensing the stillness, feeling it shift into something deliberate, like silence choosing to let go of speaking altogether. Up I got, not sure what pulled me out of bed. Down the stairs I moved without turning on any light. The kitchen hallway held my still shape near that basement entrance. Time passed while I stayed planted there. Finding it took only a glance toward the wooden drawer just 3 feet off to one side. That is where the metal glint caught my eye first. Without the key, there was no way inside. Still, the door remained shut. My hand pressed the door, flat like a sheet of paper, maybe just needing proof it existed, touching the edge that kept things separate. Years had layered white paint on soft pine beneath. Coolness came through when skin met surface. There I stayed, footprints silent on kitchen floor, ears open wide. Out there, just beyond the wood, came breaths. Slow, steady, like whatever made them had reached a place it never could have scaled. A hush pressed against the barrier, heavy with pause, as if waiting mattered more than moving. Each inhale scraped low, too near, though nothing should have stood where it now did. The air shifted, thin and sharp, carrying sound without shape but full of presence. Steps hadn't creaked, yet here it was, listening, filling the gap between plank and frame. Cold seeped through cracks, not from outside, but from how close that rhythm now sat. Not clanking metal, nor wind slipping through cracked timber. Just breath, a steady pull and release, like sleep without dreams, like something settled into stillness, not chasing anything. Near the door it stayed, near enough the noise cut through the grain and knot of the wood, regular as clockwork, calm in its hold, holding there about 10 heartbeats until silence took back over. Back I moved, away from the doorway. Back up the stairs I went. Darkness filled the room as I perched on Grandma's bed. The key came to mind, the one kept apart on its own small ring. 51 years, shaped by a silence neither broken nor questioned. She once told me something simple when I asked at age 8. Nothing more since then. Living here solo for ages made her familiar with every corner. Still she stayed, even knowing everything inside these walls. It hit me. She had set things up. Out there, where Danny's kin once dealt with the trees. Just like before, some old unspoken deal. There stands a line you never cross. Whatever dwells beyond gets its space. Lock the gate tight. Hide the key far off. Stay quiet about things better left buried. No prying, ever. Then again, what exactly comes back to you? It breathes beyond the door rather than turning the knob. 51 years pass inside your home. Death arrives quietly in sleep from common reasons. The key stays put in the drawer, giving anyone after you a chance to make sense of it. Out of everyone, I was the one who got the house. It wasn't handed to my parents, just me, named Clear. 15 years I've turned it over in my mind, out the door by sunrise. Not much attention given to folding shirts properly. Grabbed what mattered, clothes, that notebook filled with 2 weeks of scribbled patterns, plus the novel waiting on the kitchen slab since I refused to abandon it, lingering like an unpaid bill. The drive led straight to the attorney who handled property matters. Spoke plainly, let the whole place go, untouched. Everything inside left exactly where it sat. Price set by whoever might buy such a thing, hands off from me completely. Maybe he thought I'd want a chair, an old photo, something that reminded me of before. Stuff stayed behind when they cleared it out. That ceramic bowl full of hard candies came to mind. Her reading glasses sat on the side table, just like always. Little traces of a life paused, kept appearing. Each one handled slow, placed into boxes, saved without rushing. That was a clear refusal. Everything needed to be part of it. That much I stated. Back home, after returning the library book, 6 weeks late, her eyes moved between the due date and my face, silent math in her stare. A story about my grandmother came out. She'd checked it before passing. Sadness shifted across the woman's expression, then quiet understanding. No fee asked. Home took 11 hours straight, just fuel breaks along the way. That next spring, a city became my new address. Cities have held me ever since then. Pennsylvania remains unvisited by me now. The person who got the house on Miller Road. No idea if they stayed, or if their fingers brushed that key in the kitchen drawer, or how they reacted when they saw it. Midnight air feels different when it's just you and the clock ticking. Not quite asleep, not awake either. Numbers slip out. 3, then quiet. 2 follows, stretched thin by waiting. Then 4 arrives without warning. Could be memory playing tricks. Might be sound leaking through walls. Hard to tell which is real after a while. Answers used to matter more. Now I see how some curiosities drain more than they give. Still, the key rests inside the drawer. Always there it stays. This is just what happens here. Only if someone recalls their duty does the line stay firm. Yet I speak now because recollection is all I can give. Giving it to you becomes my one method of placing it beyond my skin. Hang on to it should you care. Lock the door and leave it that way.